Yeah, actually, I also first child. I'm recording all the time or the chart even till now.
Yeah. First
Yeah.
one I also do that. Second one just like 跟着 feel 走啊。
Yeah, second one you bo chap already. Like first child you will pack all the bag and everything while you will count and all this, right? Second child, just dump everything. Okay, 走了, let's go.
Yeah, Aloysius said the exact same thing.
I tell you
Yeah,
already,
it's
it's
like
like that one. You go
Yeah.
out, wow, must kanchong lah, must bring this, must bring that. Yeah,
More.
but most of the time it's the wife pack lah. That's why the husband say, chill. But you really, second one, you keep it very simple, very easy because you know what is needed, what is not needed anymore.
Yeah,
Correct.
for me, everything
Yep.
first time, so a bit kanchiong.
You have to go through, like, I think let CK go through this kind of, like, the learning process. Let him a bit more xiao on for first child, first with a few.
Yeah, you're 老教
Yeah.
already, so
Once you go for your second one, then yeah, you know already. The drill is like close the eyes also can.
Yep.
Okay, CK, let's go.
Okay, yeah, let's begin. So, welcome back everybody to the Two Dads podcast where we talk about all things dad. I'm CK and I'm here with my co-host Aloysius, and also joining us once again here is Jonathan.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Right. So in today's episode, right, I'll be diving into education choices as well as talking a little bit about child development stages.
That's right. We will be discussing everything from child's education to understanding key developmental milestones.
Yeah. So wow, let's get started. And I think CK knows my style, right? I always start off with difficult questions, good ones. So talking about good, everyone talks about getting into a good school, and I like to quote, from our former education minister, Heng Swee Keat. He said in 2011, right, in Singapore, that every school a good school. And then after that, he further clarified this statement in 2014, saying that every school a good school does not mean that every school is the same school. So it means that every school good in its own way, seeking to bring out the best in every child. So, I mean, among us, right, Jonathan has been a dad for the most number of years, right? So, Jonathan, you went through kindergarten and even now primary school. So, how do you define, what is a good school?
Wow, that's a good question. All right. I think for myself and my wife, I think both of us, we define a good school, which needs to have a more holistic approach in terms of the development of the students. So not just purely focus on academic, all the time, but the student can be also exposed to other types of learning. So for example, my daughter, I think a couple of months ago, they actually attended a few lessons of computer decoding. Yeah. So this is something that we never, had this when we were young, And I think last year P3, she went to do a little bit of robotics, so understanding how robotics works and things like that. So I feel that all this can really expose not just studying the traditional math, English, and science and all this, but it's something that is more practical learning. They can be say, oh, okay, these are some of the potential career that I may want to go into, like IT or even other aspects, engineering, maybe, for example, at a very young age. So I think for us, I think a good school is really they focus on really a holistic approach. Yeah.
So would you actually consider sending your kids to school nearby where you stay, neighborhood?
We will, in a sense. Of course, we definitely want to. But usually what we do is we will go in and do a bit of check. So we went to a website, we went to their school website and then look at what they have, what they give, beside the normal studies. Then we will decide, see whether which will be suitable. But of course, practically, they will be the best if, let's say, they can stay nearby. I mean, that's a very, very practical, but if, let's say, you are able to be afford to send them a little bit further, like for example, my school is in Fuchun, is in Woodlands, so quite near to us, in a sense. But my daughter's current school is at Aitong. Aitong is at Xinmin. So my wife and I, we have a kind of a discussion, and then we felt that, hey, why don't we, we really like what Ai Tong is doing. So we decided, okay, we just go and try it out and send her there. Yeah.
Yeah. But also understanding that, sometimes parents want to send kids to school near where they stay, right? So they can't do it based on where they're currently staying. So they actually shift house to make it happen, right? And I think in Singapore, we've seen a lot of parents did that to, shift house, move closer, because you get to enroll your kids into a primary school within certain phases. And I'm going to go through that process next year, right? So I think it's challenging because when you stay nearby, you get the first priority to enroll your kids to the school. Yeah, and I think recent news we see that there's a lot of school with oversubscription when they have more people enrolled as compared to what they can take in. Yeah. So
correct.
Would that really mean that every school is a good school in this case, where we see, because it shows that there's selected few schools, right, that have more subscription than the rest.
I think the norm is like that, Lord. I guess we cannot run away from the fact that parents will definitely have some idea of what school are the good school. Like for example, Ai Tong itself is also quite popular in a sense among the parents. Yeah, so I think definitely you have this temptation in saying, oh yeah, I want to put them there and here and there. And of course, if you are able to have the money to shift nearby, go ahead now. But if you can't, if you can't, then I think you can still explore other schools that's around. Like for me, I came from neighborhood school, but I'm still able to achieve what I need to achieve. So that doesn't mean that at the end of the day you go to good school means good lah to a certain extent. Yeah, it really depends.
I agree.
Yeah, I think we all came from neighborhood schools, right? Jonathan, are you from Orchid Park? No, were you?
Nope, I was never from
You were
Orchid
there
Park.
as Aloysius CCA.
DB officer. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess
Orchid Park is a good school.
Orchid Park is a good school. That was was it our motto or something?
No, it's a crime-free school. That's a motto.
Crime-free school. Yes, I remember that very very well. So yeah, I think this ties in very nicely to the next question, which is choosing the right school for your child, right? It sometimes can be a challenge. And let's just pointed out one particular, I wouldn't call it a restriction, but I guess it is also manage expectations, right? That, you get priority for schools that are closer to you. And if you want to attend a school that is further away, I think there is a certain distance, right? You don't really get the priority that the neighboring estates do. So, Jonathan, how did you choose the right school for your kid? Of course, balancing between distance and what the school provides. Aloysius will decide next year, so maybe you can chime
in. I think for my wife and I, we first of all we look at our resources to see whether do we have the capability to so-called send my daughter to a school that we wanted far away. So when we decide the school, we of course we definitely look at our old school, our former primary school. So my wife is an alumni from Ai Tong. Yeah. So it's just nice that Ai Tong has a very good reputation. And Ai Tong is a SEP school that they emphasize strongly on learning Chinese culture, language, and value. And this is something that draw us to it, because at home we always speak English. To be honest, we try our best to speak Chinese, but we cannot, really cannot. So then we realized that, hey, our kid next time, they need to be bilingual. They cannot be just purely speaking English and all this. They still need to know. By race we are still Chinese and all this. It's good to expose them to the culture and everything. So that was when we decided, hey, yeah, I think Ai Tong is the best place, to be able to allow my daughter to expose to the Chinese culture, and they have to learn higher mother tongue, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, higher Chinese
in primary school.
In primary school.
Compulsory?
So the moment you go in, it's part of it. It's part of it. Yeah, correct. So I also like, wow, 吓到, like, wow, higher mother tongue. But I think it's good because then they are stretched in terms of their Chinese language. even in the end, whether they want to choose to continue Chinese school or not in secondary school, that doesn't matter. But at least they have the foundation already, lah. Yeah. So that's just for us.
Wouldn't that be a concern though? Because I don't know about your kid, right? Personally, my mother tongue is not very good, so sometimes those grades tend to impact the kids' development or maybe self-esteem or confidence in a particular subject, right? So especially higher mother tongue, which is like advanced. So did that thought come across your mind when selecting
Yeah,
school?
yeah, definitely. I mean, is higher mother tongue can be very competitive. I mean, among the kids, like the child, definitely. But we always remind my daughter that the reason why daddy, mommy send you there is not so much to get A for your Chinese. I mean, of course, you don't fail lah. Hopefully, you don't fail. But it's really to expose to the Chinese language, so that at least you know how to speak Mandarin properly, what Chinese culture and all these things. So we always remind her that grades is not everything, but we want you to have the opportunity to be exposed to different kinds of learning. Yeah, correct. So even if, let's say, her higher mother tongue didn't score very well, we are sure. I mean, we are okay. We tell them, just try your best. Always give them affirming and assure them. Yeah.
Wow.
So Aloysius, what about you? How are you going to decide?
Have
Have you planned already? Next year, no? Very fast, half a year more.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah. Next year. Okay.
initially, we say that I mean, if we have the capability in terms of resources, we want to shift somewhere near certain good schools that we think that could give a good head start. Not necessarily that eventually he will turns out well, right, for my son, but at least there's a head start there because I've been speaking with a lot of my friends and colleagues, right? Sometimes we say that we are from neighborhood school. Then my friend and my colleague tell me, hey, I'm also from neighborhood school. I was like, oh, what's your school? Then my friend tell me, this particular girls' school. Oh, neighborhood one is at
In
somewhere
the
near
neighborhood.
Serangoon area. I don't want to say the name of the school, yeah, but somewhere near Serangoon area. The hall got aircon and whatnot, all this. And then it's like I come from real neighborhood school, right? My aircon is off fan. The CCA is play flute, but their CCA is play don't know what kind of orchestra, for their music lesson. So it's really funny lah. Yeah. So right now at this stage, I think we're just going to go into schools where me and my wife we are formerly alumni, and it's just nearby our house. We have two schools to choose, so it depends which one works. And based on the current news that we saw on enrollment, that scares us because a lot of people are choosing schools that we are looking at because my wife is alumni from one of the school near our place, and I think that will probably be the choice we'll go to lah. Yeah, the easiest.
Quite
Yeah.
interesting that the both of you looked at schools that either parents attended. So this conversation actually came up between me and my wife as well, and we are also looking at some of our alumni schools. So my wife especially, she came from an all girls school. So we are also looking
neighborhood girls school lah, huh?
neighborhood girls school in Ang Mo Kio. So which is interesting that that seems to be the most common way to select schools. So of course, curriculum and all this kind of thing. But the first thing we think about is, we've been to this school before. Yeah, let's look at that first. So
yeah. And your new place is also near another neighborhood girls' school. So you got two neighborhood girls' schools to choose, right? Neighborhood girls' school. Huh? Yeah.
All schools are in neighborhood lah, so we're going to emphasize on. Oh, hello.
Hello.
We're going to send him to school next year. You want to say hi to everyone?
Hi.
Hello.
Shy, very shy.
So I guess it's quite important in that sense because different schools, although we say all schools are good schools, but then again the curriculum they focus on are different, and that will definitely impact a child's development. Like for example, Jonathan, your child's school offers higher mother tongue, most likely another school will not offer that option, right? So there is already a difference there. So understanding our child's development stages is crucial, right? For you, you were telling, don't worry about grades. Right now, you just want exposure for you. So what are some of the other key milestones that you are looking at when selecting such schools?
In terms of their development, in terms of, I
Yeah,
think for myself, we look at a few lah. Number one, I think physical development, then followed by cognitive, language, and also their social emotional development. Yeah, so these are some of the things that is for us is very key. Like for example, physical development in terms of sports, whether the school has sufficient CCA that can really, if let's say my daughter, like for example, my daughter now she's in badminton, and she loves badminton. Yeah. So when she first started to choose CCA, she knows that she wanted to join a sports. And that's when she was exposed to badminton, and we say okay, first few session go and try. We did try to play badminton with her and it was very very difficult in terms of her physical skill of hitting. So we were a bit worried, but thankfully when she tried on and she was selected because the CCA was so popular that the school has to select, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, and of course, the other part will be the cognitive, where the thinking whether she's able to catch up, from the study. So thankfully, during P1, when she went into Aitong, when she was exposed to higher mother tongue, she was able to learn and understood better. Yeah, because my wife and I, we were ready to take her up. If let's say learning higher mother tongue is very stressful for us, for her. So if that's the case, we are prepared to take her out and just put her in anywhere. Yeah, but thankfully she was able to cope with it. Yeah. So yeah, and language wise and how she interact with the students, there also very important. I do think that those good school in a sense, they genuinely have the student population are generally quite okay to a certain extent. I think probably because their parents also focus on a lot of teaching the right values and things like that. So thankfully we don't have much issue for her to interact with other students. Yeah, there isn't so much a lot of bullying and things like that. But of course, I also give it to the school where they really focus a lot of character building and sharing them that you need to have the heart, to look out for people who are less disadvantaged. Like for example, my daughter, P1, P2, they have Down syndrome classmate.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and it was very challenging. But the school was able to use the class to engage the class to support these particular students, and my daughter was involved as well. Yeah, so it's very nice. You can see they really come together and care for this particular student. In terms of homework, in terms of even going to lunch together, and they will take turns to support. I think this is all something that is important. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I think it's really very nice touch from the school, right? Because not every school have that kind of practice inclusiveness in terms of this kind of when there's certain child with certain disability in learning. Back in our days, probably if we have this classmate, we will outcast this classmate, and nobody teach us because we feel that hey, this particular person cannot click with us. Yeah, so I was saying, kids who are different from us get outcast during recess, during PE sometimes because he or she couldn't participate, cannot do the fun stuff as a group, right? So they are often being outcast, and we think that because they are not like us, and in school nobody teaches us about how to be more inclusive. Nobody educate us properly. Maybe there is, but I don't recall that is very intentional kind. We need to keep a lookout. That it's until when I go into a more senior stage at youth that I start to look out for these particular group. of person with disabilities, special needs, and it become very ingrained in me. Even nowadays, I try to practice inclusiveness in different aspects of my life, in my work, in my places that I go to. Yeah, I try to do that. Be more cautious about how I think and look. Yeah, so I think it's something to be looking at, and I think it's good that Jonathan's daughter's school is practicing that, and I think every school should do that, lah. Because every school good school, ma, correct?
It's true. Like during our generation, I think they are really very traditional. So they only focus on academic. They make sure that you
Yeah.
make sure that you do well, and that's it. The social emotional aspect of it is not really there. Only like what you say, long when we are much older, in secondary school, when we join uniform group where you can expose to do com service and all these things, then
Yeah.
beginning to develop. So I think really, actually you can go back to the just now the question, like what defines a good school, right? And I feel that really a good school should start young, start the kids young to be exposed to inclusiveness, like what you just mentioned, to expose them, to get them engaged, to love people, to love the society, to be part of the like a contributor, to really be out there. I think that have to start young, not just like
Yes.
last time when you start in secondary school. Yeah, so I think that's what I really appreciate. My daughter's school, Ai Tong. That's why they call Ai Tong. So they want to really create an eye in them.
Nice.
Yeah, it's something I find it. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, so that cultivate it lah. Yeah, since young.
I think I can even see it even in early childhood sector that is starting already. Is integrating some of these learning disability students as young as 3 years old. They are going for early intervention program, on alternate days, and certain days they're back to their mainstream preschool. So that kind of inclusiveness is really practiced at young, and I think it's a very good start, right? Because I hope that it won't reach to the stage that when it goes to the workforce, then people start to not practice inclusiveness, because these people eventually grow old, they'll go into the workforce, and they may grow past that stage of their learning disability, but there's still certain learning development that is slower, certain milestone that's slower. But in the workplace, people would be as nice as because it's very fast paced in certain career phase. People are fighting for their career growth, making sure that they get the outcomes that is required, but they lose that human touch. So which is quite sad. And I hope this generation, they are able to teach it in school, and eventually people already have the kind of inbuilt kind of culture when young, and when they grow old to the workforce, they are able to practice it continuously. Yeah.
Yep.
And talking about development, I think, as parents as well, right? Sometimes we put very high expectation on our child, right? And I'm not saying we shouldn't put high expectation on our child, but if we impose them before they are ready, for these high bar that we have set, right? Because as adult, we set the bars for our children, right? Thinking that they are of our maturity and mentality. So I think eventually it will become a point that is going to frustrate ourselves and even our children, because like one example I give you, my firstborn, back then he can easily go out to shopping malls or coffee shops, sit down, don't have any mobile phones or YouTube, right? He can sit down and eat nicely, don't need to move around. But when the second one came, right, it's a different story. It's difficult to get him to sit down sometimes. And sometimes subconsciously, I will just compare, like, hey, why you cannot do what your brother did last time? Why are you not the same? And typically we are imposing that kind of expectation, because adult is easy, we can just sit down and eat because we know we are mature enough. But I think for kids 2-3 years old, it's not that easy. They're still learning, they're still growing, and different child, they develop different stage, different milestones. My firstborn can only start walking properly around 18 months to 20 months old, but my secondborn, I think 12 months old, he's really running and flying everywhere already. So I think different kids really got different key development milestones. Yeah. So the only thing I think is making sure that, if we want to compare, doctor will be the one that gives the best assessment, right? Whether a kid is not developing according to the milestones, and when is the time that you need to be concerned. That's why I think regular checks with your PD is important, to get the milestone checks, whether are they doing well, are they growing and developing. Yeah, so I think don't compare because I think it's going to be challenging. So right now I'm also comparing because my kid is born on 1st January and he's joining his peers that is 1 year ahead of him, right? So in class, naturally he's the youngest. Definitely learning will be slower. But I think me and my wife, initially we have concern, but subsequently we think that, okay, I'll just let nature take its course. He's picking up well in school, he's learning, although there's slight delay because we recognize it, he is still 1 year younger than his peers. Yeah.
I see. Oh, okay.
So, Jonathan, could you share, maybe in terms of development concerns, is there anything that parents should actually do if they have concerns for, child development? You have 2 kids, right? Primary school and even one,
Yep.
3 years old. Yeah.
Actually, I really appreciate what currently Singapore system has, where I believe, CK Aloysius, you agree with me that we are constantly asked to go bring our kids back to polyclinic to see the doctors and track their development. And I think this is something that which is really very good, very, very good. Because all this they have, I mean, you all know have the booklet and see like whether they reach certain milestone. You remember, like you need to tick all these things, right? I think all these are very, very helpful. I think one thing for myself is I often forgotten to kind of observe them, forgotten that I need to observe them. So my wife will always nag at me like, and go, hey, hello, can you please focus on your kid and observe this milestone whether they tick or not? Because I remember when we first started, when the doctor asked, so how your daughter got meet this one, I got a bit of start. Oh no, I never checked. I never really checked. I got scolded. So yeah. So I think consciously is good for us to remember, that okay, we have all these things to check. I can share with you, like for my daughter, I think there's one time we have a bit of concern where we realize by the age of, I can't remember, it's 2 or 3, her eye contact wasn't very good. Yeah, and for and one of the special need condition is really that discovered since young is really about eye contact. So we actually tried to get her focus to look at us, but when she talks, she don't really look at people right to the eye. So that got us a bit worried. Got us a bit worried. So we end up spoke to the doctor in polyclinic. We tell them and they encourage us to go to KK to see a specialist. So actually we did bring her to see I can't remember what's the title, but a doctor basically. And then she suggested to put her in, was it occupation therapy? Yeah. So she actually went for speech and also occupation therapy, and it was through there the therapists were able to help to train her. We were quite aware that we don't want to label her as special need yet until when, let's say, they go through all this, and then yes, okay, it's quite clear that she has this certain condition. So, but thankfully, after she went through all this therapy work, she was able to learn when you speak to people, eye contact is there, and her speech wise also improved quite significantly. Yeah, so I would say that pay attention probably to these 2 important one. When you interact with the kid, whether do they respond well, whether they look into your eye, and also whether are they able to form sentences properly, whether they are able to engage you in a very individual level, or rather or if let's say the kid were to just hide one corner and then play by themselves and all this. So these are some things that we may need to beware, look out. Yeah, but of course, if in doubt, always check with the doctors, always check with the professionals. Yeah.
So Jonathan, you talk about initially you found out that there's a possibility of your child having special needs, right? What was the feeling? Was there any fear? Because I think same for me, when my first child was born, I actually was working in a special needs school during his first year when he was born, right? And because being a special needs school, I have a lot of resources, right? I can know what are the key development milestones. And then when I was going through the classes, right, I was like, oh, shucks, my kid is really at this stage. There's maybe a few checked, a few not yet checked. I was pretty worried lah, because I was like, I think every parent would definitely be worried, because no
Yep.
one wants their child to be born abnormal. They want their child
Yep.
to be born typical and not atypical. And it's
Yep.
definitely a challenge. And we can see in recent news, right? One of the parent actually murdered two of the kids with special needs, and it's pretty sad. It's pretty challenging because we didn't choose that path, we didn't choose it, and it just happened. Yeah. So what was your your particular feeling at that stage?
I think it's interesting that myself and my wife, we are all social workers. So I think the first thought is really concern that, okay, whether if my daughter will have special need, that's number one. Number two, we prepare ourselves. If really at the end of the day she's detected with special need, what can we do? What should we do? I think it's important to, if let's say my daughter has special need, it's important for us to recognize it and to accept it, and then work towards how can we find resources that will better help the daughter. Yeah. I do hear cases, especially now working in ITE, because my department actually work with special need students as well. We do hear set cases where parents actually were in denial, so they actually they never send the kids for even though they detect something is not right, but they just tell themselves, oh, this is normal lah, children ma. But as they begin to grow older, the condition get worse, and then they face a lot of backlash from their peers, and then even some IT students, they are not diagnosed, but you can clearly experience that they do have the condition. Yeah, but it will be very late. And if let's say the students until ITE like 17, 18, 19 years old, then you want to bring them, then by then they will not be able to know how to handle certain things, because early detection, early intervention is so important, because the kids will be able to learn how to manage like social cues, emotion, how to manage their emotion at a very young age, so that when they grow up, they won't have a lot of problem. Yeah, but if you don't teach them at a young age, you don't help them to learn at a young age, as they grow older and older, you will get very, very challenging. Yeah.
Wow.
So what I actually have a very curious question, right? See, when you first noticed that your daughter wasn't actually making eye contact with you, at what point did it occur to you that, hey, this is actually quite a serious condition? Because sometimes parents, you try to rationalize with yourself that maybe she's shy, let's try to get her. You try to self-diagnose and you try to self-medicate, kind of thing. Maybe let her interact with kids more, then it might get better, right? So I'm just curious, at what point did you decide, hey, this is actually a condition and not just maybe lack of social awareness or something like that?
My wife and I, we actually went online to search for what are some of the symptoms, of if, especially when they cannot have eye contact, and how can we do, and what the parents can do in terms of home remedy to try to teach them. We are right. Sometimes maybe the kids is just lazy to look at you, or they don't even bother to look at you. So we want to. So we took a period. Like I think I can't remember. We took about a month or so to solely teach her in our own way, to look at us and everything. And that was then we realized that, after a month, so nothing works, like it's still the same. Then we say, okay, never mind. Let's go and send to a professional and see what they say. Yeah, and then that's where the doctor actually recommend us to send her to therapy. Yeah. We are also very cautious not to jump into labeling them very, very quickly. Because we did speak to some of our friends who are also parents and others, who I have one particular friend, they are very fearful of all these things, and they straight away say that, hey, wow, my son didn't do this. Wow, your son do this already. My son will do this. Wow, confirm special need. I'm like, hey, relax. Say chill. Do not anyhow self-diagnose. because
Yes,
if you were to have that kind of labor in your mind for them, you're going to treat them like that. And sometimes kids, it's a very gray line between special need condition and being a child. It's a very gray line. You sometimes we can't even detect, we can't even see. So again, if let's say in doubt, you have fear and all this, it's okay. Send to professionals. They will be able to help you to detect.
And
So
yeah, it was quite interesting because you mentioned something that I believe everyone or every parent is guilty of, which is labels, right? You mentioned label. So of course, the more serious ones would be your kids are special need. It's a special need kid. But then some, I think, get brushed to the side, which is like, oh, your kid's naughty, right? Or your kid's stubborn. Your kid, you keep telling your kid, as when you were younger, you were very stubborn. When you were younger, you were very naughty. You keep telling your kid that, and I guess eventually, not just the parent, when you keep saying it, you treat them as such. But I guess the kid as well will grow up to, start to realize that, hey, you keep saying I'm naughty, right? Then I must be naughty. So I'm just going to act the way that you say I am, right?
I agree.
So
so true.
I think subconsciously we don't mean it seriously. We meant it as a joke, but I don't think kids can understand that kind of joke. So I think it's a good point to not loosely throw labels at our kids.
Correct. Definitely.
So back to what I said earlier on expectation, right? So typically we will tell a child, like remember my child 2 years old, hey, you're naughty, but I'm setting the bar as comparing him to a typical, primary school kid, secondary school kid, or sometimes an adult, because he is not following what I impose on him. Therefore, I deem him as naughty because he didn't listen to me. Which I think, that guilty that's what I did at times. But I realized, as I continue on the journey as parent, doing parenting, right, I realized that, hey, that's actually my expectation. But as a kid, 2 years old, they have so much things that they're still developing mentally, cognitively, physically. I can't expect them to do a lot of things because, sometimes, example, imagine you go out with them, you bring them overseas. Like, for example, Jonathan recently went Australia with the kids, right? Halfway through, they'll feel tired, but we don't feel tired. But to them, it's the whole world, right? For us, I think if you want to translate it to them, if let's say you bring them out for a trip to go see some animals, kangaroo, and they start to say that I don't walk, I want daddy to carry, that kind of thing. Then you feel that, hey, why can't you just walk? I'm also out for a whole day, But if you're gonna translate how they feel, right? Just think of you, starting your work 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., doing counseling or even doing coding, throughout the day, and then going home, so looking at a mess, household chore, feeling tired after setting the kids to the bed, you want to sleep. I think that's how they are feeling, if you translate it to their context as a 2-3 years old child. That when they walk, they're tired, they just want you to carry. That is something that we didn't expect because we're thinking on our perspective, I'm also walking, since early morning. Why are you complaining? So that expectation is set at a different bar for them. I feel that's why we deem them, hey, you're naughty. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
it's good to balance.
Sorry.
It's good to balance the expectation. And I think personally, I always have always talk to my wife, and we tell each other that, yes, we do have an expectation, but we need to make sure that our expectation is not set too high a bar that our kids will settle out for failure, that kind of thing. You get what I mean? So we sometimes need to adjust, and I think sometimes we also need to listen to them. Traditionally we always say, oh, I want my kids to be doctor, nurses, doctor, lawyer, and whatever not, right? This is the best. But who knows, man? Sekali, my daughter, no one. Oh, maybe she want to be a singer, maybe she wants to be an artist, maybe she want to be a nurse, that kind of thing. As a parents, do we enforce our expectation on them, or do we listen to them and then encourage and then build their confidence from there? You get me? Yeah.
Yeah. So incidentally, right? How do you go about doing such a thing, especially when it comes to education? You know, like you mentioned, a traditional sense, straight A's. You know, that is the bar for kids, right? There were no other metrics to measure a kid's educational progress, right? Other than their grades. So, and oftentimes, you know, when you only focus on grades, you tend to miss out on other things. So, when it comes to a child's education, right, how do you support your child at home?
We always tell my daughter that, it's important to pass, definitely. I mean, it's good, if you are able to score well, fantastic. But even if you don't score well, your average and all that is fine. I think the important thing is you try your best. I always share with my daughter about my own experience as well, like, from IT background, when I went to take my degree, private degree, my master's, I was probably the only IT student. The rest are like A levels, they had experience with poly and all this, and they score a lot of A's. For me, it's like maybe C, maybe D, B, that kind of thing. But ultimately, is really what you want. I think that's important. So for me, is okay. I want to pass my qualification and get a cert so that I can become a social worker. I can become a counselor. Okay, because when you go out on the stage, you take the cert. It's the same one. The cert that all you got A's and my cert is all same one. It's the same written word.
Yeah, you never tell them you get A, never mind. My face is on SBS bus and SMRT.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm more famous than you. But anyway, so it's so true. Like a lot of the students, even my IT students, they always thought that, I need to get high marks, and that caused a lot of pressure and stress. But we tell them that actually that is the least thing you should feel. The most important thing is what you want, the journey, where you want to be. If you want to be engineer, or you want to do this, like even for artists, okay, what is the criteria you need to reach there? If it's academic, okay, yeah, go and get a cert, But because the employer don't look at how many A's you have, they look at, okay, you have learned, you got a diploma, okay, you got this, okay, yeah, come in, we'll employ you, that kind of thing. So I think same thing for my daughter as well. We always tell her that, you do your best. Grades is not everything. You can be super smart, you can have all the grades, but if your personality sucks, you always, a friend don't like you because you always, say something nasty and all this, also no point. So you need to strike a balance. So this is often the things that we will teach, or rather remind my daughter. Yeah.
Talking about what Jonathan just said about personality sucks, right? Recently I just saw a video. I don't know whether I share with CK. It's about this I think Tibetan monk sharing about religion. It's not about, like, in Buddhist, right? They throw rice at you sort of to give you blessing, right? So in Christianity, they baptize you in water and as a form of significance in baptism. And people think that, hey, now I meet God, I see Buddha, it means that I'm a changed man. But personality still sucks, then it meant nothing. It's more of the behavior and actions, right? And we have often hear a lot of terms about, especially Christians, right? They call them Sunday Christians because they are only being recognized as Christians on Sunday, but Monday to Saturday, their personality sucks, right? And then coming on Sunday, they just to be holy. And I mean, we have heard these terms, Jonathan and I probably heard it multiple times in church settings. Yeah. And it really points down to, I think, building character is more important. And I agree, grades are important too, but that should be secondary. Building character should be first, right? And parenting is a difficult process. How to build character, and I think it really starts on how we communicate with our spouse in front of our kids, how we communicate with people in front of our kids, how we show kindness to strangers in front of our kids. I think that starts from there, right? Because action speaks louder than what we say. Yeah.
I have this very funny story that I heard. I don't know whether we still have time for me to share this, but I always remember.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. I remember this very funny story I heard about. People always say that education is the best way to change your character, or education. Once you learn things, you get smart. Your behavior, everything will be the same. So I heard about this story where there is this robber. So he will always steal bolts and nuts from the railway. So then after that, one day he got caught, and then the judge say, okay, this guy, never study, no education, nothing. Okay, never mind. Send him to go and study and everything. So eventually the robber got a degree, a master degree in engineering. And guess what? Instead of stealing bolts and nuts, he stole the whole entire railway. That kind of thing. So that really caused me to think that, the person can study until masters, super smart and things like that. But the moral character, the moral value is, if it's not there, the guy will be even a smarter thief. Don't need to steal the bolt and nuts. I steal the whole entire railway can already. That kind of thing. Yeah, so that got me really thinking like, it's true, Yeah, so I always tell my daughter like, so if you get all A's but everything, but your attitude sucks and all this, you won't go far as well. Yeah.
The moral of that story is education will always take you further in life.
Yeah.
Whether you are a thief or whether you are a good person.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
Advance you to the next level, level up.
Level up. Correct, exactly.
Right, no matter where
exactly.
you are. Yeah, but I guess there's always a downside, right, when it comes to education. So of course, education will take you further in life because you know more things, you can understand more complex stuff. But there is the pressure to match as well, right? So you can understand all the concepts, get straight A's, everything, but there has to be a certain level of pressure imposed on our kids in order to reach that stage because obviously at that level they're going to face challenges, right? These are everything, all the information is new to them, they have to acquire by themselves, process all this kind of thing. It's not easy. So when it comes to managing this kind of academic pressure and of course other pressures like social and whatnot, how do you do it at home for your child?
Balance, I think really is to strike a balance. If we focus too much on one side of the coin, it will become counterproductive because then there will be a lot of frustration, there will be a lot of unhappiness and things like that. So I think constantly my wife and I, we always tell ourselves that we need to strike a balance between studies, between her CCA, for example, or even the tuitions, or even bringing her to play. We cannot allow her to have too much fun, but yet at the same time we cannot not have fun for her. So I think the key is really to have that balance. It's very tough, to be honest. It's not easy. Sometimes we may swing to the other side, but I think consciously as a parent, we must always be alert, where if we are swing to one side too much, we have to tune back, to balance it.
Which is interesting because I'm sure there will come a time when your kid will come up to you and say, oh, but my CCA is my interest and this is what I want to do in the future. I cannot see the path in studying, right? How is studying going to make me a better singer, for example, right? So how would you deal with this kind of situation,
Yeah, good question. I think for me as a father, I will say, for example, you want to be a singer, right? Okay, never mind. Let's sit down. How do we reach there? The process. How can you be a singer? I will throw her a lot of very practical ideas out there. Not so much to discourage her, but to show her the reality of being there. Then I will show her, okay, what are some of the examples of our former singer, and how many people are lining up to be singer, and how many failed to be singer and successful, and all these things. So ultimately show her the facts, the research. But of course for me, I always tell myself, ultimately it's still their decision. If let's say after seeing all these things, she still want to go and pursue singing, I say go ahead, because you know all this, you still want it, go ahead. I will fully support you lah. It's not easy, of course. Like I say, it sounds easy, but of course as a parent I have to, you sure not? Then you have the temptation of telling her, hey, see, only one make it out of 1,000 people. But but the other side of the coin is you may not know.
Yes.
You really may not know. Scarly, she maybe she become the one. Yeah,
Yes.
you get what I mean? You will never know. So I think it's good to let her experience the whole process. Then it can build her confidence at the same time.
Yes.
It can sharpen her decision making at the same time.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah.
Wow. So, CK, how about you? How would you eventually support your child individual interests since you're talking about this? Because, yeah, you one less than a year old, but eventually it will happen, right? Interest will come. How would you sacrifice your schedule? Because I know of people who sacrifice their weekend schedules, right, to send kids for enrichment, sports classes, music classes, and okay, guilty. I'm one of them, right? But I have my reasons. But subsequently, it's because I get sucked into this whole rat race, lah. Yeah.
Mm. In my personal experience as when I was growing up, right, I was never the kind who chase grades. For me is if I knew what the minimum grade was to get into something that I want, that's all I will achieve. Right, I will not
Okay.
go above it. I will avoid getting into it. So if getting into, let's say for example, the university requires me to get English maybe B, right? I would do it. And the moment I saw, as long as Chinese is pass in JC, I got a sub pass. So and that's it. Like I did not want A's, I did not want B's, and that's how I. So to me, it that kind of mentality was born out of, okay, I knew what I want, I knew the criteria to get it, and I will meet that criteria. So to me, grades are just a means of getting somewhere you want to go. So as long as I can impart that kind of understanding to my kid, and they can understand fully, it's great. That is not to mean that I start failing all my courses and just focus on my CCA. No, that's not the case, right? You still need to pass your academics, your school, in order to reach the next level, which is secondary school, O levels, all this kind of thing. Because like it or not, to be recognized in society, you still need some form of formal education. And that is the minimum criteria in anything. Even if you want to be a singer, you want to be an artist, you want to be what, first thing they'll look at you is were you able to just be academically decent, right? Can you read, can you write, right? You want to be a singer, you got to be able to read, right? You want to be an artist, you got to be able to lift the pen, so and so I think that's how I will try to explain to my child. When my wife hears this, maybe she'll correct me. I don't know, but so Jonathan, do you have any advice for today?
Okay, my advice is always strike a balance between what you want, what the parents want, and also what the child wants. I think often as parents, we always tell the kids what we want, but we don't really hear from them. And we always think that, they are still young, they are children, what? They won't know what they want. But that's not true. I realized for my daughter, she knows what she wants at a very, very young age. At 5, 6 years old, she can choose things. She want this, want that. And a lot of time we feel that, no lah, this is not good, without even thinking about what she's thinking about and what she wants. So I think it's good to listen to them. It's good to strike a balance. And I feel that this can really help the child to build their confidence, and also help them to better make better making in terms of decision. Can sharpen their decision making skills. I think this is fundamentally very important. As they grow, they will know how to make the right decision. They will know what they want, and then they can be independent eventually. Yeah.
Wow, good advice. I think parenting is definitely not an easy journey, but I think we all learn and grow with it. Yeah. So, that's all for today's episode. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion on this particular topic relating to education and child development.
Yes, and remember to follow us on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube for more updates and share your own stories with us.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in to the Two Dads podcast, and we'll see you again soon with another exciting episode coming.
Take care. Happy parenting.
All right. Take care.
Alright.
Bye bye.